welcome, David. It's been a long time coming.
And Lee, lovely to be here.
Absolutely. Fantastic to see you looking well.
Yep. Fit. Same to you.
Thank you. You've got one hell of a story to tell, and we're going to explore a bit of that today.
Lovely.
Yeah. So your birth meant that you came straight into the Preston Cricket Club.
Yes.
Your dad was playing and was a treasurer and then a president for a long time, committee member, long-standing participant in the club and a life member.
Yep.
So your early memories would have been just kicking around Crater Street?
Well, in those days, you had a bike, so you went everywhere. Right. So I would ride down to the Preston ground every Saturday, watch Ray Harvey, Bill Lewin, so it was Neil Turl, all the old, wonderful old days. And then you sort of thought, well, gee, I'd love to play down here one day.
Yeah.
And that was just what followed. Dad was always down there, and and I think, look, I've been blessed. I think it's what you get out of cricket, and what I think I've got out of cricket. Look, it's just, and it's the same with baseball, is the wonderful friends that and long-standing relationships that I have made. The great players that I've played against and with, far better than myself, but that was just. That's why I just think I've been blessed. I've played under 5 or 6 great captains in the firsts down there, be it started with Jack when I was 18 or 19, and Dick Telford, we won a Premiership, Burko, John Berricree, Groucho, and Killer. And but it was also different then. I think, when I first came down to Preston as 16, 17-year-old, all the guys were in the area. I mean, Knackers, Ian Murray, sadly miss him, but think of him every day. Scratch, Tony Garnett, Johnny Morgan, Bobby Morgan. We all grew up together, and we were all in the same area. And there was a little milk bar across the road from the ground, and we'd all meet there before we went off to play where we did. And we'd mix together outside as well. I mean, Friday night we'd go to the Summerhill pub, or and later, a couple of years after that, Dennis Davey would take us to the Peter Poyntons in Carlton or whatever. But we all mixed together. Yeah. And then after the game, you all went back to the club, and everybody was so pleased to hear how you went. Yeah. And so excited for. Like, I can remember when Dennis Davey played his first game, I think against Sunshine, played against Don Deeble and the Simpsons and all of those. I think he got a couple of wickets. But we were all so excited for Dennis. And that's the way it was. We just grew up and and we were such close, good mates. I mean, I'll just give you an example, just quickly. I was going through it. I lost one of my brothers recently, and it was a couple of other things that I was going through, and I got a call from Scratch just to see how I was, and we talked about a whole lot of things, and that really meant a lot. And we spoke about old times and about knackers and all of that, but I really appreciate that from Scratch, and I thought that was fantastic that he did that, and that's sort of we grew up like that, and we cared for each other, and we mixed together, and we played together, and
still do all those years later.
Yeah,
Dave, you were 15, 16 when you joined the seniors in 66, 67.
Yeah, bit older, I was 17, 18, yeah.
Yep, your brother obviously was a well-established player down there, Richard.
Yep, he was captain of the twos.
Yep, so you would have played under Richard?
Played half a year, I think, under Dick in the twos, and then end of one year and then half the next, and then the first game after Christmas, which was the year Jack Potter came, I played my first game out at Malvern under Jack, so that was the first game after Christmas in Jack's first year, and I was sort of 18 or 19 to open, and you had the captain of Fitzroy, and he captained the Shield, Victorian Shield side the year before, and next minute you're opening with him coming in at 3, and we put on about 50, and I finished up, I made 41. I always remember that because it's your first game. But Jack made 25, and I thought, here, I've out-batted him. No, he's got out. We lost. But to put your first game, you put on 50 with Jack, Blake just captain the side. So that was huge, and I played the rest of the year. And that was the first year I was runner-up to him in the batting. So I never won a batting average, but you don't play cricket for that. But that was just a little thing. But
you had a couple of seasons there, and then decided to move down to North, where you had a couple of seasons in Premier Cricket.
Yep.
Playing predominantly in the 2s. Did you ever get a game in the 1s?
No, I was going to be 12th man out at university once, and and there, look, went to North. I always remember Jack sort of said you should have gone to Fitzroy, because North were, he just felt that would be the better way to go, and look. Youth, you don't sort of hang around when you should. I sort of, I played a few games in the 3s and mostly in the 2s, and Dave Jeffrey was in probably the same situation. He was behind Peter Usher, Jock Hale and Lenny Peterson in the firsts, and couldn't get a regular game in the 1s, even though I think he should have. And Paul Collins was another guy who was in the 2s, and he wasn't getting much of a go. So, look, I had a bit of a glue with Len Maddox and sort of said, look, I'm going back to Preston, when you should have nutted it out and sort of, but you're young and you just sort of lose your head a bit. So I said, bugger this, I'm going back to Preston. So Dave said, same deal. And he was, I think, I can't speak for Dave, but probably a little bit frustrated too, even though I talk to Killer now and he says, Dave should never have left. He was such a great bowler. And he was so disappointed when Dave did leave. And so were Brunswick, because Brunswick expected him to go back there, because that's where. And Paul Collins said, "Look, I'll come with you." So the 3 of us went back, and I don't think we regretted it, because we played in a Premiership team, and
49 years ago, mate. A few things have changed.
And look, to do that, I mean, that's what you play cricket for, isn't it? To play in Premier. I mean, here we are, and that's what we're remembering, isn't it?
That's it.
And that great hand by you, and that great bowling effort by Sticks and Eddie.
We opened the batting together quite a bit that season, and you got your first nickname at the club, the Preston Run Machine, because you were in outstanding form there. We had some big or pretty solid opening partnerships, but did you give yourself the name PRM?
Look, I probably did. I don't know. I can't remember back then. But you're right, and therein goes. I think. Look, I'm not going to be judgmental on the standard of cricket now, but all I will say is that in those days, we came up against some very, very good players, and we came up against quick blokes every week. I mean, Ross McClelland at Moorabbin, Jeff Horsburgh at Williamstown, Neil Majewski at Sunshine, Alan Doble and Chapman at Ormond. I mean, I can remember you and I opened at Ormond one time down there, and we'd put on about 50, and I think we were about 25 each, and Doble just bowled me the fastest Yorker I think I've ever seen. And I think it was, I hardly got the bat out of the block hole, and I think it was just sort of think, okay, Sonny, you've been here long enough, piss off.
Yeah.
And he was I mean, you did. You came up against blokes like that every week.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing was too that was good for your batting because you're coming up against good bowling every week.
That's right. Without helmets, and you were a pretty brave man back there because you used to say a word or two to the bowlers.
I remember, batting with Bags out at Moorabbin, and we played McClellan, and he always says to me, Bags a great player and a great character. There's another one. I was chirping away and telling McClellan he was a pretty good off spinner, and Bags got down and finally faced him, and he reckons he saw the ball as it was coming back from the keeper through cover, and he said, "For Christ's sake, Ringer, will you shut up?" Look, I think the same deal. I was batting with Robbo out at Caulfield, and I think that's the closest, when you say about helmets, about closest to getting cleaned up. Ross Williams and Barry Amery and Jackie Sheehan were on a wicket with a bit of juice in it. And I rate Barry Amery as a very, very underrated player. He was quick. Very underrated player. And Ross Williams, I think that was the closest I ever got getting cleaned up. You know, he was on a tractor with a bit of juice in it. You know, those blokes were, you know. But I think it's all in the coaching too. So much kids now want to get on the front foot because they're used to bowling machines and all of that. We used to get a lot of practice in nets, and you used to have to play off the back foot. Now, I wasn't a great hooker, but you had to get out of the way or get in and turn it off your hip. And I just don't. I mean, you only have to look at Pekovsky, the number of times he's got cleaned up because he doesn't. They don't get inside the ball.
That's right.
And they think that helmet's going to protect them. And that should be just a last resort. And I always remember Ray Harvey, he was my first coach, he always said, you know, your back foot, that's the foot that you move to get, and then you can go forward or you can go back. But I think it's footwork, and I don't think kids are taught that footwork anymore. They're taught to get on the front.
Different footwork.
But like you were just saying, I think, look, legends that word's thrown round. I think there's been one great legend that I've played with, and that's Eddie. And he was just a standout. I mean, to get to play 200 consecutive games, I mean, they, you know, think they're doing magnificent now if they get 30 wickets. He used to get 50 wickets every year. I mean...
Did Eddie ever miss a game? Can you remember?
I thought he played 200 consecutive games. And
I don't remember him ever missing a game.
The partnership that he had with Dave when he was... And I think Dave was... Oh, look, he had so much respect. Dave or Sticks, whatever. He was the nicest bloke, the most humble person, and yet probably the most dynamic bowler I've ever seen at Preston.
70 wickets at 8 in his
back to back.
Yes.
And he had all the respect from. I mean, he and Eddie just worshipped him. He thought he was, and I think the reverse. Gary Moore, you know, everybody had just the greatest respect for Dave. And he was just such a humble guy, but such a tremendous... Because he used to get the ball up here. And, I mean, I can remember one day, Geelong were making 250, 300 every week with Mackenzie and Marshall, and brought them up here to Preston, and Dave and Eddie rolled them for 60. You know, we rolled Yarraville. I think Teddy Whitten Jr. was playing for them. He top scored with 9, and we rolled him for 19.
Yes.
Dave was just... and to have Eddie at the other end, what a perfect foil. And Harry. What a...
Good bowler.
Harry was beautiful action. Along with Ian Murray, I would say the nicest action that I've ever seen at Preston. And that's forgetting Gary Moore, who had probably the longest and most fluent run-up that I've ever seen.